You are listening to rudolfsteineraudio.com. If you are listening to the podcast of this, it is located at rudolfsteiner.podbean.com. Please consider becoming a patron. As well, there are two publishing houses, steinerbooks.org in America and rudolfsteinerpress.com in England, who are the sole publishers of Steiner into English and have given me permission to do these recordings. Please consider patronizing them as well. This is a reading of Collected Works Volume 266, Part 2, entitled Esoteric Lessons, 1910 to 1912 by Rudolf Steiner. These are notes written from memory by the participants and also meditation verses by Rudolf Steiner, translated by James Hines. Meditation verses used repeatedly in the Esoteric Lessons from 1910 to 1912. These are the verses directed to the spirit of the day. It has been reported that most lessons began with the invocation of the spirit of the day, yet this is not always recorded in the notes. Meditations for understanding the time nature of the hierarchies. Friday evening for Saturday, Saturn. Great all-encompassing Spirit, you who filled infinite space when nothing of my bodily members was yet present, you were. I lift up my soul to you. I was in you. I was a part of your power. You sent forth your powers. And in the first beginnings of the earth, my body's original form was mirrored. I myself was in the forces you sent out. You were. The archetype of myself gazed at you. It gazed on me, myself. I, who was a part of you. You were. Saturday evening for Sunday, sun. Great all-encompassing Spirit, from your life many archetypes came forth. Long ago, when my life forces were not yet present, you were. I lift up my soul to you. I was in you. I was a part of your forces. You united yourself with the earth's very beginning, with the life sun, and gave me the power of life. I myself was in your radiant forces of life. You were. My power of life radiated in your powers of life into space. My body began its becoming within time. You were. Sunday evening for Monday, moon. Great all-encompassing Spirit, in your forms of life shone forth sensation, when my sensation was not yet present. You were. I lift up my soul to you. I was in you. I was a part of your sensations. You united yourself with the earth's beginning, and in my body began the shining forth of my own sensation. In your feelings, I felt myself. You were. My feelings felt your being in themselves. My soul began to be within itself because you were in me. You were. Monday evening for Tuesday, Mars. Great all-encompassing Spirit, knowledge lived in your sensations, when knowledge was not yet given to me. You were. I lift up my soul to you. I drew into my body. In my sensations I lived unto myself. You were in the life sun. In my sensation, your being lived as my being. The life of my soul was outside your life. You were. My soul felt its own being within itself. Longing arose in it, longing for you, out of whom it came. You were. Tuesday evening for Wednesday, Mercury. Great all-encompassing Spirit, in the knowledge of your being is knowledge of the world, which is to come to me. You are. I will unite my soul with you. May the guide who appointed me, the guide who knows, enlighten my path. Feeling your guide, I tread my path of life. Your guide is in the life sun. He lived in my longing. I will take up his being into mine. You are. May my strength take up the strength of my appointed guide into itself. Blissfulness enters me, the blissfulness in which the soul finds the Spirit. You are. Wednesday evening for Thursday, Jupiter. Great all-encompassing Spirit, in your light, life streams to the earth. My life is in your life. You are. My soul works in your soul. I go my way with your appointed guide. I live with him. His being is the forming image of my own being. You are. The being of the guide in my soul finds you, all-encompassing Spirit. Bliss is mine from your being's breath. You are. Thursday evening for Friday. Great all-encompassing Spirit, in your life I live with the life of the earth. In you I am. You are. I am in you. The guide has brought me to you. I live in you. Your spirit is the forming image of my own being. You are. Spirit has found the all-encompassing Spirit. Blissfulness of God moves on to creation of new worlds. You are. I am. You are. Every day after the preceding meditations, These words, quote, every day after the preceding meditations, close quote, which were lacking in the original, were given by Marie Steiner for the first printing of title Aus den Inhalten der Esoterischen Schule, Volume 3, Dornach, 1951. Great all-encompassing Spirit, may my I lift itself from below to above. May it discern you in the all-encompassing. May the spirit of my being be illuminated with the light of your messengers. May the soul of my being be enkindled by the fiery flames of your servers. The will of my I take hold of the power of your creating word. You are. May your light stream into my spirit. May your life warm my soul. May your being permeate my willing, so that I achieve understanding for the shining of your light, for the warmth-filled love of your life, for the creative word of your being. You are. Meditation. Quote, in the spirit lay the germ of my body, close quote. The meditative verse with which the esoteric lessons were concluded from a certain point in time onward. In the spirit lay the seed of my body, and the spirit has incorporated into my body the eyes of sense, that through them I may see the light of bodies. And the spirit has imprinted into my body thinking and sensation and feeling and will, that through them I may perceive bodies and act upon them. In the spirit lay the seed of my body. In my body lies the seed of the spirit, and I will incorporate into my spirit suprasensory eyes, that through them I may behold the light of spirits. And I will imprint into my spirit wisdom and strength and love, so that the spirits may work through me, and I become the self-conscious instrument of their deeds. In my body lies the seed of the Spirit. In pure rays of light shines the divinity of the world. In the pure love of all beings raise the godliness of my soul. I rest in the divinity of the world. I will find myself in the divinity of the world. Esoteric lesson given in Kassel on February 6, 1910. Record A is from the collection of Elisabeth Frede. Record B, notes from Wilhelm Überschleiden. Record A, Sun, Earth, Meditation Study. Many who enter an esoteric training are very disappointed and say that they had imagined the exercises to be much more energetic and the effects of the exercises to be much more drastic. Those who say this to themselves should consider as soon as possible that they are caught in a great error, and they should make the greatest efforts to correct this error as soon as possible. It is not the exercises that are not energetic enough, but rather the human being. It is not the exercises that are ineffective, but the human being who is not making them effective. By living an esoteric life, the student should become an entirely different person. He or she must add something new to the old. In earlier times, people were faced with the choice: esoteric training or death. People had to subject themselves to exercises and trials that, if they were mature enough, led them on the esoteric path. Or they perished in these trials. Physical death occurred. Students said to themselves, quote, "If I cannot pass this test, then I am not yet mature enough for an esoteric life. So continued life in a physical body has no value for me. It is better for me to go through physical death in order to prepare myself in Devakan for a new incarnation that can then lead to an esoteric life." Close quote. Trials of this sort are no longer possible today. Our entire constitution is no longer so organized. However, students should arrive at the point where they are indifferent to all physical events. The human being must become an entirely different person. Those who today already want to assert that they have overcome the physical after doing exercises for a short period are succumbing easily to a base illusion. Truly, students must work to overcome themselves. Truthfulness is the first virtue that must be acquired by those who wish to enter upon the esoteric path. Truthfulness in the extreme, over and against themselves. Another essential word for those striving esoterically is patience. Consider the sun. Imagine the spirit of the sun, how the spirit causes the sun to rise and set day after day, and has done this already for millions of years, and will continue doing this for unimaginably long periods of time to come, to lead the earth to its destiny. We should place ourselves in this patience, and then we will not think that an exercise is ineffective when it has not had an effect after 3, 4, or 5 years. The Lord's Prayer, this wonderful rendering of the sevenfold lawfulness of the world, is a meditation of great significance that any student can undertake daily. I know one of those whom we call the Masters of Wisdom and Harmony of Feelings, who says, quote, "I take the Lord's Prayer as a meditation only once a month. The rest of the time I attempt to make myself mature and worthy enough to be allowed to immerse myself in even just one of the sentences of this wonderful meditation." Close quote. Thus we must spiritually place ourselves in relation to a meditation, that we want to make ourselves worthy enough to be allowed to use it. Theosophy is not only a theoretical study, but also a living praxis. We must feel the parables in nature. There is something spiritual behind everything physical. If we properly undertake our meditations, if we advance on the esoteric path, then we will soon reach the point where we feel something in us that corresponds to what we see in nature, sprouting and growing in spring and summer, and the melancholy of dying away in autumn. We will experience it in waking in the morning and in falling asleep in the evening. As we fall asleep in the evening, so too the plants in the autumn transition into what is night for them. Only the seeds remain. The capacities that were attained during the life of the summer are contained in them. These capacities awaken again in the spring to new activity, just as our strength and capacities from the previous evening awaken again in the morning. Again and again we must fall asleep and then awaken, must use our abilities during the day and gather new forces during the night. Behind the physical plants there are lofty spiritual beings who must advance to new activity again and again in the spring. And then in the autumn they are submerged in the night of the plants, when only the seed of the plant remains. But these beings are so advanced that they need to complete this alternation only once within a year, while the human being must go through this alternation of falling asleep and waking every 24 hours. It is simply no longer necessary so often for those lofty beings. Feeling oneself unified with the universal spirit, with the spiritual, must not remain only a mere saying. We must truly feel, experience within ourselves what lies hidden in the sequence of spring, summer, autumn, what lies hidden in nature's springing to life and dying away. Spiritual life flows into us during meditation. In order to be able to give a proper reception to this spiritual life, we must prepare ourselves in a suitable way. We do this through study. Just as the sun, which sends out its rays and power, would find only an empty space if the earth were not prepared and arranged to receive and use its power, so too, our meditations would not find soil to be fruitful. Our meditations would find an empty space if we did not prepare ourselves through study, if we did not make ourselves receptive for the spiritual life that flows into us through meditation. Thus we can see macrocosm and microcosm. Students should give themselves to their meditations with total fervor, with complete devotion and concentration. They should completely and entirely suppress their thoughts of the everyday and open themselves only to lofty spiritual forces. The meditator should think of every meditation as a sacrifice, as sacrificial incense that rises up to the gods. In this way we contribute to progress and harmony, although lower, egotistical, selfish thoughts provide the ground for catastrophes. There is no human way to prevent these catastrophes, such as we have recently had and such as are still to come, from becoming increasingly terrible. One can do whatever one wants. They will still occur. In all that we do, in all our thoughts, we must bear the spiritual in mind, also in our feelings. We have descended from the spiritual. We will again ascend into the spiritual, enriched and perfected. Small quote of the beginning of the meditation at the conclusion. In the spirit lay the germ of my body. In my body lies the seed of the spirit. End of record A. Record B, Sun, Earth, Meditation, Study. If spiritual exercises are not effective, then the cause is never in the exercises, but always in the meditator. Those doing the exercises must immerse themselves in them with fervor, and as a result become entirely different persons. In ancient times, people were confronted with the choice, success or death. Those who were not mature enough to pass the test could then hope for better success in the next life. That secured them passage through Devachan. Today, however, at least external life must become a matter of indifference to the student. He or she must become a different person. In the first instance, students must become truthful concerning themselves. Then they must learn patience. Example, the patience with which the sun constantly shines on everyone and everything. The Lord's Prayer as material for meditation. A master said, I take only one petition for meditation once a month. The rest of the time I try to make myself mature and worthy enough to understand this petition. Theosophy is a living praxis. We must experience everything physical as a parable for the spirit, which is its foundation. Thus we come to the point of sensing within us an alternation, such as from spring to summer and fall, sprouting and growing in nature in the spring, and the melancholy dying away in the fall. Just as we fall asleep every evening, so do the plants in the fall. Only the seeds remain, and in them the capacities acquired in the summer. In the spring, these forces awaken again, just as ours do every morning. There are lofty spiritual beings that stand behind the physical world. They are so far advanced that they need only once per year to perform this alternation that we go through every day. Preparation for meditation through study in order to make the ground receptive. Meditators should be devoted to the exercise with total concentration. They should set aside all everyday thoughts and open themselves only to the highest spiritual forces. They should understand meditation as a sacrifice. They should see it as the incense of offering, so to speak, which rises up to the gods. Thus we should too, of course, constantly keep the spiritual in mind in our lives and all our actions. In this way we contribute to the harmony of the great whole according to our best forces. We originate in the Spirit, and we are Spirit. This should be expressed in our whole being. Esoteric Lesson given in Cologne on February 27, 1910. Manuscript from Hulda Schuten-Dietz. Doubt, superstition, illusions of the personality. We must find our path in life through learning. We should not place ourselves in life with one-sided judgmental views. If we test everything that science, art, and the various worldviews offer us according to the state of today's science, then we will find on our way three threatening forces: doubt, superstition, and the illusion of personality. Do not avoid them. Do your own research, for we are not allowed to close ourselves off from modern science, neither from its inventions nor from its research. It is even our duty to take notice of science, although we receive an entirely different teaching in our theosophical circles, which is laughed at and derided by modern science. Modern science, for its part, cannot assess our teachings because it knows only matter, and its research relates only to material and physical things of existence. However, in order to do justice to science, we should allow doubt concerning what is taught here to arise within us. We should not be afraid to doubt, so that we can arrive at inner clarity in ourselves. In this way, we struggle through to esoteric teachings out of our own consciousness. And what does it mean to defeat superstition? The fetish that Africans see and worship in an idol, in a piece of wood, we call superstition. However, if they are not thinking of something spiritual that stands behind it, to that extent it is superstition. But we can just as well speak of superstition when we see how modern scholars build their fetishes in their hypotheses of atoms and molecules, which also remain as nothing but hypothetical matter if one does not admit to the spiritual standing behind it. However, we should not allow this kind of superstition to rise within us. There is still a third thing that joins doubt and superstition. That is the illusion of personality. These three forces, which rise and sink within the human soul, want to rule the human being. If we have struggled through powerful doubt to knowledge of the truth, and through superstition to faith in the spirit that lies behind all matter, then we will also be able to overcome the illusions concerning our personality. However, this is often the most difficult. Even if we sometimes think we are inwardly free human beings and believe that we confront the facts of the world and other people without prejudice, nevertheless, this only too often mirrors the illusions of our personality. One more thing must be brought to our attention. Do not carry our teaching into social gatherings of another kind. Speak of our teachings only where you have come together for this purpose. Do not carry them forth to argue with outsiders, and speak just as little about them during your meal times, for on such occasions only light conversation should be conducted. It is best if you avoid society where only ordinary gossip of the day is exchanged. However, if you must engage in such gatherings because of your position in life, or if you are forced to do so for other reasons, then you should attend them in a spirit entirely different from before. Not because you enjoy them, but rather you do this as a duty, so that you do not offend anyone because of who you are. I do not say this in order to give a moralizing sermon, because I do not forbid anything at all. However, for this reason, I have to say it to you. Esoteric Lesson, Munich, March 13th, 1910. Manuscript from Matilda Scholl. In esotericism, we must pay attention to something we call the spirit of the day. The creative, divine beings have brought a different spirit to expression in each day. And the masters of wisdom and harmony of feelings have given us meditations with which we can approach these spirits on each different day. We want to begin today, Sunday, with the verse that the masters gave for it. Reader's aside, and here's the beginning of it. End of reader's aside. Great all-encompassing Spirit, from your life many archetypes came forth. And that's the end of the sample. Continue the reading. Today we want to discuss how easily an esotericist tends to forget even the simplest introductory exoteric principles of theosophy. Such a principle is, quote, everything perceptible to the senses is Maya, is illusion, close quote. Every esotericist should use this as a constant meditation. Most, however, will think to themselves that they already understood this statement long ago. But very few consider how little they bring it into their lives, into their feelings, and few consider what they should include under this statement. For example, one might say, quote, every morning I pray the Lord's Prayer and draw strengthening forces for the whole day from the spiritual contents of this wonderful prayer, close quote. Now, a master of wisdom said that he prays the Lord's Prayer only once a month, while the rest of the time he prepares himself to pray it worthily. Thus one could say that one also wanted to pray it only once in a month, for one must imitate a master. But what would that be? That would be absolute arrogance. That would be an expression of the feeling that we could do the same as a master, that what we can draw from the spiritual content of the Lord's Prayer at his elevated position is also available to us. We often think that we have already eliminated a trait such as arrogance, but have only shifted it to another corner of our souls. For these traits are also Maya. So, too, the concepts we have made here on the physical plane of good and evil, just and unjust. When we spoke in the Exoteric Lessons of the influences from Luciferic beings on the one hand, we formed the point of view that these influences are bad and that we must oppose them. On the other hand, we know that Lucifer brought us freedom. However, we absolutely must not carry our learned concepts of good and evil, just and unjust, over with us into the higher regions in which Lucifer and the good gods are engaged in what is expressed as a battle, indeed as a battle that unfolds for the most part in human souls. There is an occult secret that certain human traits developed too quickly during earthly evolution. Lucifer is involved in this. How does this come about? Lucifer comes from the old moon stage of evolution and brings the tempo of the moon to everything that falls under his influence. Since he influences our intellect and our reason, they have been developed far ahead in time. We will go through many incarnations with the most varied experiences, yet our intellect, our reason, will be the same as today. But what is the consequence of this premature development? It is that we cannot bring our intellect into harmony with the wisdom that we find given on the earth. And from this, error after error arises. I can give you a trivial example of this. After the first terrible eruption of Mount Pelée, the local scholars calculated that a longer pause would come next. However, more eruptions came, worse than before, and lava and ash buried not only the proclamations of the scholars, but also the scholars themselves. This is an example of how our combinatorial intellect, instead of slowly permeating the wisdom of nature's powers, rushes ahead and thereby finds itself on false paths. Lucifer has his influence in play all over the earth. But we would be in error if we wanted to find an expression of this influence in earthquake catastrophes, in storms, weather, and hail. On the contrary, we are to seek his influence in everything that is blossoming quickly toward ripeness. And this acceleration must be held back, hindered by the good gods. Weather catastrophes are even often the expression of the good gods. They are the hindrances that the good gods must place against Lucifer in order to avoid an evolution that takes place too fast. And indeed, they are hindrances that also correspond to moon evolution in order to compensate for Lucifer's moon tempo. What was proper during the moon stage of evolution is now destructive in its effects. And in the same way, the good gods must intervene to impede the development of an esotericist. What, then, is Lucifer's work in our esoteric life? It is his influence that causes us to take the Maya of our everyday concepts from material life over into our meditations. However, so that we do not enter the spiritual world unprepared on this erroneous path, the good gods throw hindrances onto our path, hindrances such as all our bad character traits. They are arrogance, vanity, envy, anger, and ill will, which break out when we approach the spiritual world with our earthly attitudes and feelings. And until we have eliminated them ourselves, the spiritual world remains closed to us, because these worlds must be kept pure from everything that is Maya. When we reflect on this relationship of the good gods, of Christ, to the Luciferic beings, to Lucifer, then the meditative sentence, quote, "everything around us is Maya, is illusion," close quote, will appear to us in an entirely different light. We become aware of how often we forget in everyday life that things and characteristics that we think are essential are really only Maya. The end of that lesson. Esoteric Lesson, Munich, March 15th, 1910. Manuscript from Matilda Scholl and Amelie Fugger-Glett. We want to begin today's esoteric lesson with a reading of the prayer to the Spirit of the Day. Exoteric churches direct their prayer to God in general. However, Theosophists know that every interval of time has its own regent, and so they turn in humility to the spiritual being who, under the name Mars, rules over today, Tuesday. Quote, "Great all-encompassing spirit, knowledge lived in your sensations. Close quote. Continue the reading. Those who enter upon an esoteric training must be clear that they are thereby undertaking something very serious, that they must work on themselves with all seriousness in order one day to be capable of participating in esoteric work. In what way should an esotericist work on himself or herself? We know that the human being's etheric body is born only in the 7th year. Until then, the etheric body surrounds the physical body like a mother sheath. Now, until the 14th year, in which the astral body is born, the etheric body should be prepared in the right way for its later development. But all kinds of unfinished and undigested components are attached to it, partially from earlier incarnations, partially from the present one. Everything that lives in us as habit is developed in the etheric body from the 7th to the 14th year, and according to how we solidify our views into prejudices. Parenthesis, educators can have a great influence here, close parenthesis. According to this, a person will be, for example, more or less able to take up theosophy. Those who acquire firmly defined opinions will find theosophy's teachings less accessible than those who remain open to everything new. The etheric body is fully developed between the 7th and 14th year. If children do not take in great role models, if they do not look up in reverence to an authority, then the etheric body during this age, 7 to 14 years, will not be soft and pliable. Such people then have a difficult time finding themselves in life. The etheric body is hardened, and it costs a great deal of effort to dissolve this hardening. The moon forces, Luciferic forces, make use of this and flow into it. Not without good reason did Christ say, quote, "Watch and pray," close quote. The astral body then develops from the 14th or 15th until the 21st or 22nd years. The remnants that remain attached to this body are by far not as troublesome for the reception of the teachings of theosophy as the etheric obstacles, because the etheric body is a much denser mass than the astral body. From the 21st year until the 28th year, the self, the human I, capital, now develops. And the teachings of the masters of wisdom and harmony are so designed to be appropriate for our time that they work primarily on the I, are taken hold of by the I. Earlier, this was not the case. Then an esoteric teacher had to work not only on the I, but also on the astral body. However, with the constitution of humanity today, with its much more individual inclinations, this would not be possible. If a teacher tried to intervene in an astral body today by attempting to direct the passions, drives, and desires, this would immediately call forth a revolution in these astral regions. For the human self, the I should be developed only in freedom in human beings of the present time. What people acquire in the I as knowledge through the teachings of theosophy, they must apply to ennoble their older but less lofty bodies. Why can human beings understand all the teachings of theosophy through their thinking, through the I? We received the physical body on old Saturn. On old Sun, the etheric body was newly added. Then the physical body was in the Sun state. The etheric body, however, was in the Saturn state, that is, the first state. On the old Moon, the newly added astral body was in the Saturn condition, the etheric body in the Sun condition, and only the physical body was in the Moon condition. On Earth, the physical body is in the Earth state. The newly added youngest part, the I, however, is in the Saturn state. For this reason, the I understands everything that has happened since old Saturn times.